Bird Books presents Girl Hidden, a Detective Kaitlyn Carr mystery novella. A novella by Gable. Narrated by Madison Gilpin. Copyright 2022. Prologue. She runs. She runs until she starts gasping for breath. She runs until her throat burns and her lungs feel like they are lit on fire. She runs until her calf muscles start to cramp up. The stitch in her side becomes a rip, a gash put there by a knife. There's blood running down her head from where she collided with the door. It's a small cut, but her head bleeds profusely and covers her in a sticky substance that she first thinks is just sweat. The ground is uneven and compacted in sand in one spot, and others are like silt. It takes her foot and twists her ankle. She takes another quick step to jump out of it, and keeps going. She needs to get away. Someone had come in the night and attacked her family. She was asleep when she heard the screams, and they were already dead when she ran into their bedrooms. Smoke engulfed the house, and she didn't see the flames until she started to cough. She tried to rouse her older sister and her brother, but they refused to move. When she ran into her parents' bedroom, she screamed because they were still sitting up in bed, leaning against the cushions. Her mom had a book on her lap that had fallen to the floor, but her dad's computer had only slightly shifted as his lifeless body knocked into it. Plumes of smoke filled the house, and she remembered what she was taught in elementary school by a firefighter who had a beautiful white and black Dalmatian sitting obediently by his side. He said to get down on the floor because the smoke will rise, cover your nose and mouth with a shirt, and to snake your way to safety. If you're not sure if the room on the other side is filled with fire, you have to try the doorknob to see if it's hot. The girl follows all the directions precisely. She was always a good student, she liked to take notes and she liked to learn things, but this is different. This is her family. This is her house going up in flames, and she can't stay here. As the smoke gets thicker and thicker, and she can't open the window in her parents' bedroom, she tries a doorknob and rushes back into the smoke-filled hallway. She drops down on the floor and snakes her way into the empty guest room separating the kids' wing of the house from the parents'. She climbs to her feet and she runs down the steps, jumping 2 at a time, sometimes 3, and then out the front door. She keeps looking over her shoulder, half expecting the man, the people, whoever it is that killed her family, to kill her too. She runs down the porch and toward the gate into the darkness. The nearest neighbor isn't too far away, and if she runs fast enough, she can make it there. She doesn't have a phone, she doesn't even have shoes, but the girl doesn't stop. She breathes hard and she gasps for breath, but she keeps going. She was always a good runner, and her mom and dad attended all of her meets. They told her that one of these days, they were going to see her in the Olympics. So in the last act of love, the girl runs. She runs even though her feet get beat up and slam against rocks. She runs even though all she wants to do is go back to that house and to her family and stay there with them forever. But her dad told her and her siblings that if anything were to ever happen in the house, they were to run, just go, take off, and protect themselves. That's what she does, and her world will never be the same again. 1. When I get home from a 2-mile jog and a coffee with my friend Sydney, I find Violet dead asleep on my couch. She's my little sister, 12 years old. She's been living with me for only a couple of days, but she's already expecting me to take care of her, as if she were completely helpless. Hey, wake up, I say, kicking her foot. She rouses slowly, raising her arms up and rubbing her eyes. She has long flowing hair with a few highlights in the front, and her hands are covered in rings and bracelets. You know, you're supposed to wipe your makeup off at night, I say, referring to the dark eyeliner around the rims of her eyes. She has beautiful almond-shaped eyes, but that style of creating a dark outline all around is doing her no favors. Yeah, But then I wouldn't be wearing it and be ready to go the following morning, she says with a smile. It's all in good jest. I'm making fun of her, but only because I'm her older sister, and that's what we're supposed to do, right? She's here to reconnect. She had a fight with our mom, and she's camping out on my couch 2 hours away from home. I also know that if she has any plans to stay here long term, that's a no-go for me. I'm a detective with the LAPD, and I work crazy hours. I work long shifts and I'm hardly ever home. I'm not exactly the picture of a perfect guardian. But then again, maybe that's exactly what she's after. While I take a quick shower, Violet comes in and starts removing her eyeliner with a Q-tip in front of the vanity, which she has crowded up with all of her creams and lotions. It'd be easier if you just wash your face, I say, grabbing my towel from behind the curtain. It'd be easier if you didn't have a million suggestions, she snaps. She's dressed all in black, which is kind of a new look. Maybe it's a phase, or maybe it's not. I have a day off today, so we made plans to go down to the Grove and grab some lunch. It's a big open farmers market with a movie theater, a Barnes & Noble, and lots of restaurants. Going there was the only thing that seemed to get Violet excited, and I'm glad that I could fill my role as the fun sister as opposed to the nag. I don't like telling her what to do, mainly because I don't like anyone telling me what to do. I'm a woman in my 30s who hasn't had more than a few relationships that have lasted longer than a year. I like to work, and I'm not really looking for anything else. Do you want to go to the crepe place? I think they open at 11. She nods her head and her eyes light up. That's the most excited that I've seen her since she arrived. I'm hoping that she'll actually talk to me about what's going on and what happened. So far, I only have one side of the story, Mom's. It takes me a few minutes to get ready. I don't bother drying my hair because it's going to air dry on its own pretty quickly in the LA heat. I slip on a comfortable pair of leggings, a loose-fitting t-shirt, and flip-flops, my uniform when I'm not on duty. It takes Violet a little bit longer to get ready, but I'm used to that. Luckily, she doesn't take a shower. Instead, she just piles on some dry shampoo and colors in her eyelids with a dark plum color that ages her at least a decade. She completes the look with a pair of high-waisted jeans and a cropped tank top. You look good, I say. Thanks. She smiles with pride. We pile into my Prius and drive over to the Grove, and manage to only find parking on the 3rd floor up, since this place is pretty popular on weekends. The French Crepe Café is located on the far end of the farmers market, back in the covered section. It's not so much a cafe as a stand, but it's a permanent structure, which has been around for at least 15 years when I first started going to the University of Southern California. I order a crepe with Nutella and strawberries for us to split. The portions are more than generous, which is to say they're gigantic, and we want to save room for some ice cream. Grabbing a table right next to the thoroughfare, I take a sip of my lemonade and ask about Mom. Well, you don't wait, do you? She smirks. You've been here since Thursday and you haven't said much. We haven't had much of a chance to talk, Violet says. Let's talk now. Why do we even have to? She whines, twirling her hair on her finger. You're here and you're supposed to be living up in Big Bear with Mom. Can't I just visit my older sister whenever I want? Of course you can, but you just sprung this on me when I was there. I don't mind you coming to visit, of course, but I'm concerned. I need to know what's going on. Didn't Mom tell you? Violet asks, playing with her food. She did, but she told me her side and I want to hear it from you. What is her side? She asks, crossing her hands demonstratively in front of her chest. She said that you lied about where you were. You said you were going to meet with your friend, and then she called your friend's mom and you weren't there. Mom said that you went to a concert she'd forbidden you to go to. I want to ask her why she didn't make up some lie about sleeping over at a friend's house who would actually cover her tracks, but I don't want to give her any ideas. That's the kind of stuff that I used to do as a teenager, and it would drive Mom nuts. Mom also said that you are always talking back to her. You're closed off. How can I be talking back and be closed off? Violet narrows her eyes. You know what I mean. Look, none of that matters. Mom doesn't know what's going on. What is going on? Nothing. Just hanging out with friends. I don't know, Violet mumbles. I have interviewed murder suspects that were more forthcoming. Do you have a new group of friends? I try a different approach. Is that what she said? Violet puts her elbows on the table and throws a strawberry into her mouth. I'm not here to tell you what Mom told me. I want to hear what's going on from you. She inhales deeply. I don't know. Nothing's going on. Yeah, I have some new friends I met in art class. Natalie, her boyfriend Neil, and her brothers. So what? Why doesn't Mom like them? I ask. First of all, no one doesn't like them. They're really popular. So, why does Mom not think they are such a good idea? It's not that. I was on the newspaper, and I don't want to be on the newspaper anymore. She's freaking out about that. She thinks I'm giving up on it or something, but, interests change. I cut a small slice into the last bit of the crepe, trying to make it last longer, wishing that we had gotten two. If anything, it would have given me more time to get more information out of her. You can tell me anything, right? I'm your sister. I'm not going to tell Mom. I've been there. With her, I mean. She's kind of difficult, but I can help you. Can I live with you? Violet asks, her eyes lighting up. I hesitate. No, right? See. You can't help me. She rolls her eyes, and the pouty expression returns to her face. Look, you know about my schedule. You know that I'm never home and the schools here aren't very good, I say, leaning closer to her to try to make my point. Violet licks her lips and brings her eyes to mine. There's an art school in Santa Monica, she says after a long pause. It's private, but I want to go there. It's not too far from here. You could drop me off or I could take the bus. I hesitate. She has 4 years of school to go, and I'm not sure I could handle a teenager for that long. Yes, that would be great, but it's private, right? I point out. She nods and looks away. I'm still paying off my student loans, and Mom can't afford a private school. How much is it? $40,000 a year, she mumbles. I don't say anything, and neither does she. I feel bad. I wish that there was something I could do. So I get up and buy us 2 more crepes. I applied there, she tells me when I return. To the school? I ask, putting the crepes on the table in front of me and sit down. Yeah. I got in. They gave me a scholarship. It's impossible to get in without knowing someone or being related to some famous person, but I did. It's really prestigious, but people who graduate from there go on to have exhibitions at the Getty Museum and the Museum of Modern Art in New York. It's a really big deal. How much does this scholarship cover? I ask. 50%. What did Mom say? That's why she got so mad. She didn't want to hear about it. She said she couldn't afford it, and that it's stupid to spend so much money on art school anyway. Violet's face gets so red, she looks like she's about to burst into tears. She was the one who dragged me to all these museums when I was a kid. She taught me to love art, and now she's suddenly completely against it. I told her that I could apply for loans, but they would have to be in a guardian's name since I'm underage. It's not lost on me that she said guardian instead of mom to send me a message. I nod, trying to figure out how I can help. What does this have to do with the concert, though? I ask. After she refused to even talk about art school, I got mad and didn't want to deal with her anymore. I try to put my arm around her, but she shrugs me off. I don't want to talk about this. Let's just have fun today. Can we do that? She asks, sucking in some air and wiping a small tear out of the corner of her eye. Of course, I say with a nod. Chapter 3. The girl is diminutive, but sturdy. She has long shoulder-length dark hair and almond-shaped eyes. Her legs are muscular and her shoulders are broad, even despite the fact that she is slouching under the thick blanket. I can tell that she's not a stranger to running, and that's why she ran so far. There are closer neighbors, but she ran almost 2 miles before knocking on someone's door and calling the police. This girl and I maintain eye contact my whole walk over from my car. I keep waiting for her to look away from me, but she doesn't. Her eyes are laser-focused. When I get closer, I realize that she's not staring at me per se, but rather through me, almost as if she can see to the other side. Angie? She nods. There's a small wound on her head where she's got stitches, and a little bit of the dried blood remains caked onto her hairline. Angie, I'm Detective Carr. I want to ask you a few questions about what happened. Okay, she says after a long pause. Can you tell me who you saw last night? Who you saw doing this? Who was at your house? What happened? I shouldn't have started with such a large amount of questions. Yeah, I guess, but I didn't see his face, or their faces. So, there were multiple people? No, I have no idea. I woke up and they were there, but I didn't see them. How did you hurt your head? I ran into the wall. I woke up when I heard the shots, but I wasn't sure what was happening, and then I smelled the smoke. I ran to my parents' room and I saw them. Then I just started running. Running? Yeah. My dad said that if I was ever in trouble, or if anything bad ever happened, like 9/11 or anything like that, just to run, not to freeze. If someone was after me, trying to pull me away or take me somewhere, I was supposed to run. I'm a runner. What do you mean by that? I ask. I run cross-country at school and track. Dad was training me. He said I could go to the Olympics. Just like that, the trance seems to fade away. The shock disappears and tears begin to flow. Angie begins to sob, burying her head in her hands. I tell her how sorry I am and try to put my arm around her, but she just cries harder. After a few moments, I realize that she needs space. I feel like I have broken something. She seemed to be talking and processing everything just fine, and then everything changed. A social worker arrives right in the middle of all of this. I'm really sorry, I say. Angie was just fine when I started talking to her and getting her statement. Then she told me how her dad wanted her to go to the Olympics, and suddenly she broke down. That's pretty common, the social worker says. What she witnessed was a major trauma. When you first talked to her, she was probably still in a state of shock, but to a point where it was a bit distant from her, like she was talking about somebody else. When she started talking about her dad, it just became too much. I nod, feeling like I did something wrong nevertheless. The interview is pretty much over at this point, as the social worker and the psychologist, who arrived a little bit later, tell us that she needs time to process everything that she has witnessed and make sense of it. I totally understand, except that I wish that she could give me just a little bit more to go on. I have found that whenever people try to make a narrative of something they have watched, seen, or experienced, it often doesn't turn out to be as accurate as when I get their memories firsthand. The best is when they offer no story, no narrative building, just experiences, which I can then sort out. I wait a while to approach Angie again, but it's not long enough. She begins to sob upon seeing me, and I know that this is not going to work out. Detective Abrams arrives a little bit after, and Captain Medville assigns us to work together. There are others on the case as well, but we'll be the primaries. I catch him up on what we have so far, and he gives me a little wink when no one is looking. I should have known better than to get in this situation, because it's not that he can't keep a secret, it's more that he will push the boundaries and almost get us caught. Thomas and I have been dating for about 3 months. It started out as hooking up and then got a little bit more serious. He's the kind of guy who's always down for a good time. It doesn't matter if he worked a 24-hour shift. If someone suggests a spontaneous trip to Vegas where you don't sleep for 2 nights, he's down. He's always ready to party. We make kind of an odd couple because I'm more of a homebody. I'll go out to the bar with friends and that sort of thing, but I prefer to stay home, relax, read, and watch some Netflix. Thomas never seems to need to unwind. He licks his lips in that sexy, seductive way and brushes his hands through his thick hair. He walks so close to me that I feel like he's just about to give me a peck on the cheek right here, in front of everyone. Luckily, he doesn't. It's not that it's illegal for us to have a relationship. He's not my superior and I'm not his, but it wouldn't be good for either of our careers. If deputies or detectives start dating, they typically announce it when everything is very serious, and at that point, they're practically engaged. That's nowhere near where we are. We're just having fun, but the way that Thomas is pushing my buttons and the thin line that he's skirting makes me both very uncomfortable and kind of turned on. We talk about the case. Our plan is to find out if Mr. Hendrel has had any issues with his colleagues. Angie's father owned a flower shop at the bottom of Laurel Canyon. Business connections, friends, and family are the next people to interview besides neighbors, who I still have to talk to. Thomas walks me down to my car, and that's when I see Violet sitting in the front passenger seat, her nose buried in her phone. "Oh, who's that?" he asks. "My sister." "Can I meet her?" I shake my head no. "Come on, please." "Why do you want to meet her?" "We've been seeing each other long enough to start meeting friends and family." "You know Sydney, and there's no way you're meeting my mother," I say, only half joking. "Well, if I'm not meeting your mother, then at least let me meet your sister." I cringe. Wow. She looks young. She is young. "You know, you told me you had a sister, and you told me that she was little, but you could be her mom." "Thanks. Thanks for making me feel very old," I say, crossing my arms and exhaling deeply. Finally giving in, I knock on the front passenger window and pull her attention away from YouTube. She smiles and waves. "Can I come out?" she asks, rolling the window down. "Yes," I say without trying to hide my sarcasm. I know that she's only asking my permission to be difficult. I'm reminded of the girl that I used to be at her age, and suddenly, I have an inkling of sympathy for what I put my parents through. "Detective Abrams, Violet." "Violet, Detective Abrams," I say, pointing to each of them. "Thomas," he says, extending his hand. "Hi. Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you." "All good, I hope," Violet smiles, cocking her head. Of course. You're Kaitlyn's favorite sister. I'm her only sister, she says, not getting the joke. Thomas smiles at the corner of his lips, and she melts before him. We chat for a little bit, and then make plans to meet up after I drop Violet off at home. You know, he's really cute, Violet says when we drive away. You should date him. I shake my head and roll my eyes. I hate to admit it, but we have a lot more in common than we should. Chapter 4. After dropping Violet off at home, I meet up with Thomas again to canvass the neighborhood. You would think that it would feel a little awkward seeing him, but in reality, it feels nice. I haven't spent the night at his house in a while, not since Violet arrived. Before, I used to sleep over almost every night. His apartment is closer to the precinct. It's bigger, brighter, and he pays for a housekeeper to keep it spotless. He makes fun of me for how dirty my place can be, but then again, I'm in the process of paying off my student loans. He doesn't really have any. Your sister is nice. She looks a lot like you. Thanks, she's not really that nice, and she doesn't really look that much like me, but I appreciate the sentiment. When I had stopped by at home, I put on a blazer and changed into a pair of slacks to look more professional. It's important to look respectful when you talk to friends and neighbors of crime victims. It gives you an air of authority. It sometimes encourages people to open up. On occasion, however, it has the opposite effect. I hope that when it comes to the Hendrel's murders, the neighbors don't clam up. People who live here either come from old money or new money, but money nevertheless. I hope that means that they're more willing to open up to the police. Hey, Thomas says, grabbing my hand by surprise. I turn around to scan the outside all around to make sure that no one's around. No one's here, you don't have to worry. He pulls me closer to him. I open my fingers up to prevent him from holding on, but he holds me tightly and pulls me in close. Thanks for introducing me to Violet. I know that it's a big deal. Neither of us have met each other's families. I appreciate it. Sure, of course, I mumble, very well aware of exactly what kind of big deal this is. Look, I know your reputation and I know that you're not really the commitment type. So, I didn't want to put any pressure on you. About what, he asks. About anything. What about you? He asks. I mean, you're the one that's impossible to pin down. How so? I ask, crossing my arms. I haven't heard about you dating anyone the whole time you've been on the force, or were they all your secret boyfriends, just like I am? He smiles and sneaks a kiss on my cheek. No, I haven't been dating much. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like we're made for each other. He pulls me in for a kiss. I like the way that he talks, but I keep my guard up. It's not that I don't trust him. He hasn't shown me any reason not to. It's just that I'm not particularly looking for a relationship. This started out as just hanging out, spending the night occasionally, and frankly, that's all I wanted it to be. Somehow things changed. It's almost as if Thomas wants to tie me down. I hate to admit it, but I kind of like that. So, what do you think about Angie? I ask just as we are walking up the steps to a big modern glass structure masquerading as a house. I don't know. She's kind of a hard read, Thomas says, dropping my hand. Do you believe her? I don't know. So far, yes, I admit. She has been through a lot. Why? Do you think she had something to do with this? I have no idea. It's just crazy that she's the only one left alive, and someone was really out to get the family. Did the crime scene tech say anything else? I ask after a long pause. Yeah, so far no shell casings or fingerprints were found. But they are still collecting evidence. No casings and no fingerprints are not good signs. Thomas knows this as well as I do. Usually the crime scene investigators find at least some evidence, on doorknobs, handles, or glass panes of sliding doors. If they don't, then it's a much more professional job. Did you check all the doors? I ask. I only checked the front. Thomas nods. No broken locks. So, do you think he was invited in, or do you think the doors were unlocked? I don't know. I have no idea in either of those two cases, but they didn't break in. No shell casings, huh? He shakes his head. He picked them up then? Or it was a revolver. Revolvers don't eject spent cartridge casings. Thomas knows this as well as I do. Listen, you know as well as I do that this looks like a professional hit. Not a lot of evidence, not a lot of forensics, no witnesses, except for Angie. Yeah, except for Angie. Why leave her alive? A personal connection? Thomas asks. Possibly, but that would leave her traumatized. They'd have to know that, so if they care enough to leave her alive. Then what? They must care about her to some degree. He shifts his weight from one foot to the other. His jeans are a little tight, and so is his blazer, accentuating the muscles in his body. He hasn't shaved since last night, and the stubble is coming in, but it's that sexy kind of stubble. He lifts his aviator glasses to the top of his head and looks at me with those intense eyes. I lick my lips and resist the urge to reach over and kiss him. If we're ever caught and our relationship is ever exposed, it cannot be here. Listen, let's go talk to the neighbors. Sounds good. I knock on the door, and after a few minutes of loud barking, a fit woman in her early 20s answers, picking up a small, rowdy dog who continues to bark over our introductions. We show her our badges, but she doesn't invite us in. Do you have a few minutes to talk about this, Ms. McGreary? I ask. Yeah, call me Allison, please. She puts her dog inside and steps out onto the porch. It's like one long cement slab with enormous sculptures on either end. It's definitely not my style, but peeking in through the hallway, I can tell that it is hers. You live here? I ask. Yeah, with my boyfriend. What is it that you do for a living? I'm a model. I used to work over at Cafe Insomnia, but then I got a few jobs, and I'm kind of hoping I can make some money being a photographer as well. Oh great. That sounds good. And your boyfriend? I look at the size of the house, and it doesn't look like anything that a very successful model could afford. I haven't checked Zillow, but this house is probably worth close to $3 million just due to its sheer size. My boyfriend invented an app. It kind of took off. Dating app? Blink. Oh good. Is this his house? Sorry, I don't mean to pry, I add when she recoils away from me looking annoyed. I'm just trying to figure out who lives here, who was here, and what you may have heard. Well, why didn't you ask me about that, she says, twirling her ash blonde hair around her finger. I don't know if it had recently had a keratin treatment or what kind of product she had in her hair, but it's so shiny and lustrous it's practically blinding to the eye. She pulls up a spaghetti strap and turns her attention to Thomas. Is there anything you would like to ask me? Yes, of course. He nods. Where were you last night? Here. We were both home. We went out to dinner around 7, to Angelino's, and that was it. What time did you come back? 9. And then? I ask. We watch Netflix, laid down, and turned out the lights around 10. You didn't hear anything this morning around 5? No, dead asleep. What about your dog? I ask. Did she hear anything? No, not at all, which is funny because she usually gets really pissed at all the birds and just about any noise. A couple of days ago, we had a cat in the yard. Somehow she heard her and just went nuts. I nod, jotting that down in my notebook. You know, that is kind of strange, she says, putting her weight on her back foot and sticking the other one out. She pulls out a cigarette from her back pocket and lights it. You want one? No thanks. We shake our heads, but Thomas is jonesing for it. He quit about 6 months ago, but every day is still a huge struggle. How come we didn't hear anything? She asks, leaning forward. I thought that we would for sure. 4 people were shot, right? That's a lot. 4 shots, or was it more? 4 from what we've learned so far, I say, even though it's technically against the rules. There will be autopsies, so that might change. Still, that's kind of nuts, she says, shaking her head. I mean, I can't believe that so many people were shot right over there, and we heard nothing. I think we have to upgrade our security system, maybe put up a wall. What do you think? I really can't give you advice on that, Thomas says. We thank her for her time and hand her our cards, although I doubt that she'll call me if she has any other comments or things that she suddenly remembers. How could 4 people be killed less than 100 yards away from that house, and that little dog not hear a thing? Thomas asks. I don't know, but I don't think she's lying, I say, walking down the steps 2 at a time. Yeah, that's the problem. I don't think she is either. Chapter 5. We walk around the neighborhood, knocking on more doors, and no one is home. It's early afternoon on a Saturday, so they might be out. Then we make a note of all the neighbors who still need to be talked to. The one on the far end, near the stop sign, right at the beginning of the neighborhood, is owned by an older woman who was an actress and a photographer back in the 80s. She doesn't invite us inside either, but from the looks of it, she seems to have a reason. Her hallway is filled with paper and boxes. There's just a sliver of a little walkway made to get from the front door to the living room. It's not a surprise to us that she hasn't heard a thing, because she can barely hear us when we ask her questions. We leave her our cards anyway, and continue knocking on doors. The last person to interview is McKenna Morgan, a plump woman in her 40s with frizzy hair, and the no-nonsense expression on her face is reminiscent of a high school principal. She's the woman who Angie ran to when she took off. She answers on the second knock, dressed in a vest, pair of sweatpants, holding a bright-colored iPhone in a glittery pink case in her right hand. She lives in a little cottage about 2 miles away, and tells us that she rented this place from a family who have since moved. Their mother had owned this house, but it is only 700 square feet, and they could get a house that's over 3,000 square feet in Texas. Instead of selling it, they decided to rent it out to someone who might need it, and McKenna, being a painter, was the perfect candidate. McKenna's paintings line every square inch of every wall in her bungalow. They're bright and daring in subject. Nudity is not uncommon. She tells me that she takes classes at UCLA, and they're the ones that have marginally employed actors pose nude for the class in order to study the human body. In the kitchen, I see the ones that I like the most. The subjects are dogs, cats, rabbits, and even a hedgehog. These are my animal studies, she says. The detail is marvelous, and all of them have high contrast with delicate thin lines. I actually want to ask her if I can buy the hedgehog, but this wouldn't be the right occasion for it. I decide to look her up online instead, and hope that they aren't too expensive. So, is there a reason why Angie came all the way over here instead of stopping at any of the other neighbors for help? We're friends. I have a dog walking business, and I exercise all the dogs in the canyon. She saw me and she's just fascinated with dogs, so she helped me out. She walked a number of my clients. I also do dog grooming on the side. I am saving up for a van. Oh, that's great. Yeah. A lot of people here work a lot of hours, so they don't mind paying a premium for dog walking, grooming, and having someone just spend time with their pet while they're gone. That's where I come in. That's how you and Angie became friends? At one point, I got very busy, got a lot of clients, and I didn't want to turn anyone away. So I hired her as my assistant. She was really good, always on time and always pleasant. She loves animals. I guess when that horrible thing happened to her family, she just ran to my house. When we went back and I saw all the soot all over the place, how charred big parts of it were, and how drenched they were with all the water. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't be talking about the house at a time like this. No, not at all. Just tell us about what you felt and how you reacted. Anything is helpful. Did you know her family? Thomas asks after she's silent for a little bit. Yeah. I met them a few times. They're very nice. Her father owns the flower shop down at the bottom of Laurel Canyon. Her mom mostly worked as a homemaker, taking the kids around, that kind of thing. What kind of relationship did they have? Very loving. They really cared about each other. They were childhood sweethearts. I think they met in high school and have been together ever since. Then you don't know if either of them had any relationships on the side? Not according to what Angie told me. Do you know why anyone would have done this to them? Did they have any enemies? No, not that I know of. I didn't know them that personally. I met them in passing here and there. Her mom thanked me for getting Angie involved and getting her excited about life again. What do you mean by that? I ask, shifting my weight and sitting back a little bit on her plush velvet couch. Apparently before we met, Angie was quite depressed. She had a friend who killed himself, and she was just having a hard time with everything. What's this friend's name? Tegan Ellis. She never talked about him. Her mom told me about him. So it was a guy? Yeah. Their moms were close friends, and apparently her mom's friend blamed her for not finding out that he was planning to do this, but she had no idea. She really had no idea. At least that's what her mom told me. It just came out of nowhere, and by the time I met her, it was about a year later. She was still really struggling with everything, so we just talked about dogs. She liked my art. I showed her how to paint a few things, and she was really excited by that. Angie would come over after school, and we'd walk the dogs. Sometimes she'd have dinner. Other times we would just paint and that was it. You were friends? Thomas asks. She nods. Can I ask you something? Please don't take this the wrong way, but what do you have in common with a 14-year-old? Thomas leans over across the coffee table, spreading his legs out, and she almost cowers in place. She clears her throat and then meets his gaze. What are you implying? Nothing. She shifts her body a little bit, clearly uncomfortable, and answers, I needed a friend, okay? I've been through a lot of shit in my life, too. You're what, 40, 45? I think what my colleague is trying to say, I interrupt, is that it's just unusual. There is a big age difference to spend so much time together. Yeah, maybe it's odd, but I'm not very good at making friends with people my own age. They have families. They care more about going to the hair salon, getting laid, or whatever else. Since I work from home and I walk dogs, it was nice to have someone over, a neighbor. It was nice to show her how to paint. It was nice to introduce her to the dogs. I was trying to make her feel better. If you think there's something wrong with that, then that's your problem, not mine. The sternness in her voice makes me more confident about the fact that she's telling the truth. After I give her my card, we walk out and ask her to be in touch in case she remembers anything else. She nods and closes the door in Thomas's face as soon as he exits. "What do you think?" he asks. "I think she's pissed at you." "Yeah, but I had to ask. Somebody had to be the bad guy." It's definitely unusual, but I got the sense that they were friends. Maybe she's one of those recluses who just isn't good at meeting people and talking to people. So this kid comes along, and they have something in common. I guess we have to talk to Tegan's mom to find out what happened. Yeah? Guess so. Let's swing by the flower shop first, though. Tell them we're on the way. Chapter 7. We snake down the narrow 2-lane road, sitting behind piles of cars, waiting for their turn to merge into the rest of Los Angeles at the bottom of the canyon. Dale Hendrel's shop, Laurel Canyon Flowers, is located almost at the bottom, right across from a subdivision called Mount Olympus. I don't know if they're aware of the irony of the name of this housing development, or if they even care, but I find it humorous. "I'd love to live here one day," Thomas says. "Have you ever seen the houses inside?" I ask. "Yeah, I had a girlfriend who lived in one. Her father bought it for her. He was a movie executive." "What was that like?" It was unfortunate when we broke up." "You wish that you were still together?" "For the house? Yes. For the person? Not so much." He winks at me, and I feel a little bit uncomfortable. I can't tell if he's joking or just making fun, but that's often the case with Thomas. He says things just to get a rise out of someone, and sometimes to charm them. The flower shop is small and narrow, but full of old-world charm. It doesn't feel antiseptic, but rather welcoming. The building looks like it's an old 1920s cottage, popular in this area of Los Angeles, because it's the kind of housing that the old studios would put actors into. There is thick crown molding where the ceilings meet the walls, made of real wood. The walls are painted a friendly color of sunflower yellow, which brings out the beauty of the bouquets of flowers lining the walls and the big counter up front. A woman in her 60s is minding the counter. She's thin, but not frail, someone who looks like she's not a stranger in a Pilates studio. There's a mystery novel open on her Kindle, and the only reason I can tell is because the screen flashes when she looks up. I introduce myself to Diane Goodwin, the woman behind the front desk. She smiles and gives me a slight nod. She has crow's feet and laugh lines around her lips, but she looks like a nice person to have a chat with on a casual day or a Saturday morning at a farmer's market. "Can I help you with something?" she asks. We show her our badges and introduce ourselves. I secretly hope that Thomas will take the lead on this and break the bad news to her about her boss, but he doesn't. Instead, he waits for me to do it. "I'm afraid I have some bad news," I begin after clearing my throat. I jump right in. I don't mince words, and I tell her that Dale Hendrel is dead. By the expression on her face, she looks like she's about to break down. She stares at me and then looks away. She gasps for breath as she covers her mouth, but then she takes a few forced breaths and meets my eyes again. "I'm really sorry for your loss," I say, "but I need to ask you a few questions in case there's anything that you might know about what could have happened." "Yes, of course," she says, fighting back tears. "How could this have happened?" "I'm not really sure. That's what we're trying to find out. Can you tell me anything about the flower shop? How long has Mr. Hendrel owned it? He inherited it from his father. It's a family business. I think his father started it back in the 70s. They've lived in this area for a long time. Dale Hendrel grew up around here? Yes. His family came from the Midwest back in the 50s or so. He's an only child? He inherited this job? Thomas asks. Diane shakes her head and says, no, he has a brother. His brother was really upset that their father gave the shop over to Dale. Really? I ask. How upset? They had a whole falling out. I don't think they're in touch, and they haven't been in years. When exactly did he inherit it? There was a big lawsuit for years, but I think it was finally settled 2 years ago. His father died about 8 or 9 years ago. Wow, that's a long time for a family to feud, I say. I've been working here for about 20 years. His brother is not a good man. What do you mean by that? Thomas asks. He's just not. He's dangerous. He made threats. There are also rumors that he's involved in all sorts of shady things like insurance scams and that kind of thing. What's his name? I ask. Timothy Hendrel. Thomas raises his eyebrows like he recognizes the name. I want to ask what he's thinking, but I bite my lower lip. Not right now. I don't want him telling me anything in front of Diane. Diane doesn't have anything more of substance to offer. She opened the shop this morning, and the last time she saw Mr. Hendrel was 2 days ago when he came in to do some business work in the back. I give her my card and we leave things on good terms. I ask her to give me a call and get in touch if she can think of anything else. Who's Timothy Hendrel? I ask Thomas as soon as we're outside the door. A loud garbage truck rushes past us just as he's about to open his mouth and say something. When we see that it stops to pick up the trash from a nearby business, he pulls me into an alley right behind the building. He says, Timmy H., have you ever heard the name Timmy H.? No. I shake my head. He's one of the biggest drug dealers in this area. Meth. Coke. He has ties with the Mexican cartels, but he mainly sells and services this neighborhood, all of Laurel Canyon, Beechwood Canyon, and north of Sunset. What are you talking about? That can't be the same person. It is. Well, it sounds like it is. Hendrel's not such a popular last name. You think that he's Dale's brother? He nods. Why would he kill his whole family, though? Nieces and nephews, that's sick. Mexican cartels are known to do a lot worse. I'm not saying I'm certain, but this is definitely a lead that we have to look into. I nod, putting my notebook back into the pocket of my jacket. I tap my foot on the ground, trying to think of what to do. Let's go talk to narcotics, I say. I want to see the file on this guy and see what they can tell us about him. Good idea. Thomas nods. Before heading over to the precinct, I suggest that we go see Mrs. Ellis. Her son was friends with Angie before he committed suicide, and Mrs. Ellis was close to Julie Hendrel, Angie's mother. Apparently there was some sort of falling out, and I wonder what happened. Mrs. Ellis lives in a big, 3,000 square foot home in West Hollywood. It's completely surrounded by hedges, giving it privacy both in the front yard and the back. It takes her a few minutes to answer when we ring the bell on the gate. We're about to turn around and give up when the gate opens. She then appears, dressed in a floor-length bathrobe made of satin or perhaps silk. I can never tell the difference between quality fabrics. She's barefoot and wearing thin, sheer pajamas underneath. Her hair falls in disarray all around, and it looks like there's about a gallon of dry shampoo on top. I know how that works, because I use the products a lot when I don't have time to take a shower and do my hair. Mrs. Ellis has pale skin and small, delicate bone structure, or perhaps she just doesn't eat enough, like a lot of women in the city. Her eyes are red, and if she were wearing any makeup, it looks like it has worn off. We introduce ourselves, show her our badges, and she nods. She hangs her head, whimpering that she knows what happened to Julie. A friend of mine called just now, she says. She lives on Julie Street. I can't believe that she's dead. I can't believe that they're all dead. We're very sorry for your loss, I say, and I'm about to jump right into asking the questions when she surprises me by inviting us in. Inside the gates, there are 12-foot hedges all around. A big playset sits at the far end of her front yard, and as we walk inside her Spanish-style 1920s but recently remodeled all-modern house, I see the big pool and the hot tub in the backyard. My husband has the kids today, she says. Are you divorced? I ask. Yes. Well, no. We're separated, but he took them today to the movies after he heard what happened, just to give me some space. Yes, I understand. I nod. She hangs her shoulders and taps her fingernails on the quartz countertop in the kitchen. She walks over to the cupboard, retrieves a tall glass with specialty bubbles inside to make it look handmade. She pours herself a glass of water. My mouth is parched, but she doesn't offer me any. She gestures to the kitchen table, and we all sit down, facing the backyard. I glance longingly at the crystal blue pool surrounded by nothing but green grass, green shrubs, and the lone lemon tree standing in the corner, framing her slice of paradise. I'm sorry to bother you on such a difficult day, but we really need to find out as much as we can about the Hendrels and who might have done this. Can you tell me how long you and Mrs. Hendrel were friends? Julie and I were close for years. We met when Tegan and Angie started school together in kindergarten. We did the PTA and volunteered for activities. She was always the funniest mom there. She had a good sense of humor and she liked to drink wine, which in my book was a win-win. Yes, of course. I nod. She takes a sudden pause and a tear runs down her cheek. She shakes her head violently from side to side, trying to hold back the rest, somewhat successfully. I just can't believe that I'm talking about her in the past tense. I can't believe that she's gone. Is she gone? Is this really happening? She whispers. Yes. We're very sorry, Mrs. Ellis, Thomas says. He leans over and touches her hand to try to put her at ease, and it seems to work. She takes a few gulps of water and waves her fingers in front of her eyes, trying to dry them. Can you tell me what happened between your son and Angie? Was there some sort of falling out? The glassy look that Angie had appears on Mrs. Ellis's face. She looks far into the distance, almost like she's dissociating from where she is now, in order to even talk about her son. Tegan was always such a sweet and sensitive child. He's my only boy and I babied him a lot, but we would have so much fun. He was so affectionate and kind, but then everything got dark. What do you mean by that? I ask after a long pause. She inhales slowly and exhales even slower. I give her space, but if she hesitates for too long, I remind myself to step in. I have to keep this conversation going. I know this is difficult, Mrs. Ellis, Thomas says, squeezing her hand, but anything that you can tell us may help. Tegan liked Angie. He had a crush on her. They were friends, very good friends. They went out on a date together and they kissed. Then she said that she didn't want to be with him. She said she didn't want to date him. He was broken by that. She touches the inner side of her mouth and her cheek with her tongue, and then presses her lips together tightly to keep herself from crying. I guess things felt weird between them after that, but he told me about it, and it seemed like it was going to be fine. Then somehow it wasn't. What do you mean? What happened? I ask. He killed himself. The words hang in the air between us, and just as I'm about to say something, she continues. He came home, and he hung himself in his closet. He left a note, telling us that he loved us and he was sorry, but the world was just too painful to deal with. I blamed Angie for not wanting to date him. I shouldn't have. I should have been understanding. You can't feel what you don't feel. He wanted something he couldn't have, but I had so much grief. I was so angry, and I couldn't see Julie after that. She just represented everything that I'd lost. I was so angry with Angie, and I was so angry with Julie for being her mother. I was just angry. Now that her whole family's dead, I don't know. I can't believe that this happened. She begins to cry again, and a few moments later, her family comes back, the older children laughing and talking loudly, and a baby and a toddler crying in the father's arms. Mrs. Ellis makes cursory introductions, but doesn't even mention that we're detectives. Mr. Ellis seems to know what's going on, at least by the expression on his face. To be mindful of the children, I ask him to step out and talk to us on the porch. He's about a decade older than his wife, and he confirms the story of what happened to Tegan almost word for word. I give him our condolences and our cards, with a promise to be in touch about anything that we find out. So what do you think about that? Thomas asks me when we get back in the car. I don't know. I mean, what? You think she killed Angie's whole family because she thinks that Angie was responsible for her son's death? No, of course not. I just wanted to see what your read on the situation was. They're suffering. They've been through a lot, and I can see why she wasn't friendly with her old friend anymore. But do you think she has anything to do with this? If she were to kill anyone, it would be Angie, I say. Not her siblings. Not the husband. Probably not even Julie. Yeah. I get that sense too. We sit in the car for a few minutes as I jot down a few more thoughts and notes from the interviews. Thomas doesn't have this habit. He makes notes when he gets back to the office, but how can they be that accurate if there's all this time that passes in between? I've tried to talk to him about this numerous times, but he just shrugs it off and says he remembers what's important. I give him the benefit of the doubt. What else can I do? We decide to talk to narcotics a little bit later because I'm still officially off today, and I want to check in on Violet to see how she's doing. Will you come back to the office later? Thomas asks. I shrug and say, maybe, or maybe you can just talk to them without me tonight. Yeah, of course. He nods, tilting his head and giving me a wink. Are you asking about work, or are you asking me if I'm free to hang out tonight? A little bit of both. He smiles and I smile back. He looks around, and after seeing that there's no one that we know, he pulls me close and gives me a kiss. I shake my head no and push him away. He tries to kiss me again, but this time I'm more forceful. You're going to get us in trouble. Look, you know that we shouldn't be doing this. Well, let's make it official. Let's file the papers with Human Resources, and everyone will know that you're mine. Is that all you want? A conquest? I laugh. He grabs my hand and reassures me, no, I want you. I'll think about it, okay? I get into my car and shut the door in his face. He smiles and I get the sense that he likes playing this game. He likes fighting the good fight. What he doesn't know is that he makes me nervous. Chapter 8. When I get back home, I find Violet sitting cross-legged on the couch with her computer open on her legs, her phone in one hand, and an iPad with Netflix on the couch next to her. Are you doing work? Texting? Or watching Netflix? I joke. I head straight to the kitchen and gulp down a big glass of water. All three at once, baby. She laughs. How's the case? Did you solve it yet? Nope. I wish it were that easy. Well, there'd be a lot more murders then, she says, pulling her hair up into a high ponytail. What do you mean? Well, you'd either be completely free, or you'd be working on cases all day long, and for that you need a lot more murders. Good point. I guess all the backlog with crime scene evidence and the slow moving of interviewing everyone involved is what's keeping the murder rate down, I say sarcastically. She laughs and I laugh along with her. Do you want to get pizza? I ask, plopping down on the couch, realizing just how lackluster my apartment looks in comparison to McKenna's, or even any of the other ones I've been to today. All I have is a basic IKEA couch and some basic art on the walls. I guess I'm going for the minimalist look without actually spending a big budget on looking minimalist in that Etsy and Pinterest kind of way. Yeah, pizza sounds great. She nods. Vegetarian? Sure. Of course. I grab my phone, order from a local shop, and tell her that it should be here within the hour. I lean over. You know, I have the TV right there. You don't have to watch stuff on your iPad. Oh, I like it this way. It's easier. It's closer. Besides, I'm technically doing homework. How's that coming along? I ask, leaning over the computer and seeing a Word document with the heading Vietnam War at the top. Kind of long-winded, she says. I have to write 2,000 words on this, and I can't use Wikipedia. Of course not. It's not a reliable source. I laugh. Well, let me know if you need any help. Like what? You can write an essay? Duh. I can write an essay. I've been to college. USC nonetheless. Besides, I love writing. You do? She asks, genuinely surprised. You see all those things over there? You know, all those papers bound and put on shelves? She nods. Those are called books. I love to read, and some people who love to read also like to write, I joke. Really? She puts her laptop down, closing the lid, and even puts the phone on top of it. She looks genuinely interested in what I have to say. What? Why are you so surprised? I get up and walk to my bedroom to change out of my clothes. I put on a pair of joggers and a loose t-shirt while taking off the bra to make sure that I fully relax. Wait, you never said anything about writing? Well, I don't know. We never talked like this before. I know, but still. Violet leans on the doorframe. Her flannel shirt is so big that it reaches down to her kneecaps, resembling a robe. She pulls it tight and crosses her arms. So, you really want to be a writer? I didn't say that. Let's not get out of control. I raise my hand and laugh. Tell me, she says. Okay. I hesitate and then come right out with it. I thought about writing a novel. You have? She raises her eyebrow, clearly excited. I thought that you weren't interested in anything, not Law and Order related. Well, I didn't say I was going to write a fantasy novel. More of a suspense, a mystery thriller. Tell me about it. It's boring. I shake my head. It is not boring. Violet follows behind me like a puppy dog, pestering and pleading as if I had a cookie in my hand. Fine. Please don't tell anyone. This is top secret, you got it? I say. She nods. I take a deep breath, and I can't believe that I'm actually contemplating saying any of these words out loud, but why not? She's my sister, right? Okay. I'm working on a novel. You are? She jumps up and down and grabs my hand, pulling me in for a hug. When she pulls away, she wants to know more. Yes, I'm working on a novel about an LAPD detective and these cases that she solves. Different murders, missing persons, and that kind of thing. Oh my God, I have to read it. No. Come on, I'm your sister. It's not ready yet. I only have 30,000 words and... 30,000 words? That's like halfway in. Yes, but I'm a little stuck, and I haven't worked on it for a month. Now I'm thinking of putting it aside. No, you cannot put it aside. You have to finish it. That's rule number 1 when working on your first novel. What do you know about that? Maybe I don't know that much personally, but that's what people say. I've read a number of books on this. You have? Yes. Don't laugh, but people have been publishing books on Kindle and on Amazon, so there's been a lot of stuff about that kind of thing. I just wanted to learn more about it. A friend of mine wants to be a writer too. So, it's kind of investigating what's out there. There's YouTube, Udemy, and private courses. You'd be surprised, but there are actually a lot of podcasts about it. What have you found out? I found out that there are a lot of people that like to do this sort of thing. Writing books when they're in the midst of their other careers. If it's something that you like to do and you like to read, obviously, you should finish it. Then you have to let me read it. No. I shake my head. No, absolutely not. No one is reading this thing. At least, no one that I know. Listen, it's your first effort. I know that it's good, because everything you do is good. You're quite meticulous. I'm not very good at painting, I offer. Yes, but you don't care about painting. It's not the same thing. She laughs. The doorbell rings and our pizza arrives. I put the 2 boxes on the coffee table, and we don't bother with silverware or plates. I fold mine in half and take a huge bite, wipe my mouth with the napkin and glance over at her. She's sitting curled up, her feet totally in the seat folded underneath her as if she were a bird perched on the edge. A slice is gone in 3 big bites, and she licks her fingers meticulously to get every scrap of oil off. It's not exactly ladylike or refined, but it's nevertheless endearing. Tell me about this private school, I say, bringing up the subject at a time when her defenses are down. Her cheeks flush red. I can tell that she's a little embarrassed. Listen, I told you about my book. Tell me about this private school you want to go to. Is it for real? Yes, it's for real. It's an art school. It's got the best teachers. The students go on to do really important work in New York and San Francisco, and just really make an impact on the art world. You should see who graduated from there. Well, you don't know anything about art, but you'd be impressed if you did. I laugh and wonder out loud, seriously, how did you find out about it? I've known about it for years. I've always wanted to go there. So you applied behind Mom's back? I ask. She nods. I wasn't sure if I would get in, but I did. And then I got a scholarship on top of that, but Mom still didn't want to hear about it. What happened? She's just so, I don't know, closed off or something, she says, shaking her head. She's always in a bad mood. She never wants to do anything. She just goes to work, comes home, and sits around watching TV sometimes if she's lucky. I think she's depressed. If she just lays on the couch, then it's kind of like how she was when Dad. My words stop. I hadn't meant to say that out loud. Violet just shrugs and reminds me, I don't know how she was back then, remember? I was too. I nod and it feels like a punch to the gut. She's just vacant. Did something happen? Did she? No, it just started slowly. It's like, remember she had that backache for months and then she stopped taking her daily walks. I guess that kind of threw her off and now she's just depressed. Oh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I don't know. It's just one of those things that, you know, when you think of it in retrospect. I haven't really thought about it. I just was waiting for her to get into a good mood, but she never did. Then I realized that I'd been waiting for 9 months. It seems like a long time to wait for a good mood. At some point, it becomes a personality. Yeah, I know what you mean. You never visit, she says, looking directly at me. A flush of regret and guilt washes over me. I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. Violet shrugs. It's just what it is. You have your own life. I know you're really busy. There are all these things going on here with your career and boyfriend. I shake my head. Well, whatever, dating life. Besides, I get it. I wouldn't come back ever if I were you. What are you talking about? I ask. Mom's impossible to deal with. You know that. I'm sure she's been like this for years. I'm tired of her moods. I'm tired of adjusting to what she wants. I just can't wait until I'm 18 and I can move out and get out of there. I get up, walk over to the overstuffed chair where she's sitting, nudge her over to make room for me, and then wrap my arms tightly around her. What's that for? She asks, pushing me away, but I pull her in closer. I'm really sorry I haven't been there for you. I do know that Mom is hard to handle, and I just left you there. I shouldn't have. It's just I have my own stuff going on. I get it. I'm not your child. I'm not your responsibility, and I'm not here to complain. She pushes me away and tells me to sit on the couch. Reluctantly, I do as she says. That's why I thought maybe I could live with you and take the bus to school. Is it a boarding school? I ask. No. It's just that the traffic from here to Santa Monica is kind of brutal in the mornings. It doesn't matter. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. if I have to. It's worth it. I can get there early, get some work done, and work on my art. I just think it's going to be really good for me. Let me think about it, I say. Don't tell Mom. She nods. What about tuition? She asks. Maybe I can get a job. No, you can't. You're underage. I can work in the summer. I can do chores around here, whatever you need. Okay. Do they have some sort of financial aid options? I ask, unable to believe what I'm saying. She starts to smile from ear to ear and say in a jolly voice, yes, they do. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take out a loan for me? I can't make any promises, but let me think about it, I say. I don't even know if it's possible for me to take out a loan for you, since I'm not your parent, but I will look into it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. She jumps up and wraps her hands around my neck. She holds me there tightly, and I become overcome with emotion. I feel a real connection with my sister who, until this point, has been kind of a stranger. I push away when I feel a drop of oil run down my back, and see it plop onto the carpet. Okay. Take that pizza and put it over a plate, or at least the box. Sorry. She cups her hand and puts it underneath, dropping it back in the box. After wiping her hands on a napkin, she gives me another warm hug. You have no idea what this means to me. It's like a dream come true. I smile and tell her, yeah, I can see that. I don't remember the last time I saw you this happy. I just know that if I go there, everything's going to be great. You realize, of course, this is a high school still, right? You can't have those kinds of expectations for high school. She laughs and I laugh along with her. Chapter 9. The following morning, I get a call from my mom. She sounds tired but annoyed, so her usual state. How's Violet? She asks in a huff. I know that I shouldn't bring up the private school, but everything seems to be related to it. She's good. We're getting along great. Perfect. That's exactly what I want to hear, she says sarcastically. I can almost feel her rolling her eyes. Listen, you want us to get along, right? Yes, but I also want you to talk her into coming back home. I walk around the living room, keenly aware of the fact that Violet is going to stop the water in the shower any minute now and overhear our conversation. I'm assuming she told you about the school? Mom says, cutting my contemplation short. Yes, she did. I'm assuming you told her that it was a terrible idea? No, I wouldn't say that. I hesitate. How could you not? She can't live with you. Look, she seems really excited about it, and frankly, I haven't seen her happy about anything for a while. Have you? Don't make this about me. She's not going to that school. Can we just talk about it? We have talked about it, and my answer is no. She flips on FaceTime, and I reluctantly answer. Seeing my reflection on the screen, I'm keenly aware of the fact that I haven't brushed my hair or put on any makeup. You look tired, she announces. Are you getting enough sleep? Yes, of course, I mumble. Why are you so puffy? It doesn't matter. I just woke up. Now? So late in the morning? I can't win. I swallow hard and stare into her hazel eyes. Given her age, she has a surprisingly small amount of wrinkles, even though she's never had any plastic surgery or procedures done, not even Botox. Her hair is already styled, and she's wearing just a minimal amount of makeup to bring out her eyes and her lips. She looks good, but then again, she typically looks good. Look, did you get on here to criticize me? I ask. Can we just talk about this? There's nothing to talk about. I'm her parent. This isn't a democracy. So, it's a dictatorship? I ask. People aren't particularly happy living in dictatorship. That may be the case, and I want to make her happier, but Violet is impossible. The water coming from the bathroom stops, and I lower my voice so Violet doesn't hear me. Look, Mom, she wants to go to the school. She wants to pursue art. She's been in this funk, right? Why don't we at least talk about it? When you say that you're going to talk about it, that means a yes, and I don't want her getting her hopes up. She's not going to live on her own in 9th grade. She won't be on her own. She'd live with me. Do you want to take that on? You want to raise a teenager at your age? I shake my head but then stop myself. The truth is that I don't know what it would be like to have Violet live with me full-time. Everything's going well now, but what happens when she wants to go out somewhere and stay out late and I say no? Will she listen? Will I have to spend my precious time off, my few hours off from work, fighting with her? Scouring the streets for her? I just wanted to make her happy, I say, but that doesn't come out right. I liked the fact that she was excited about this. She seems really passionate, and I thought that this would be good for her. You don't know what you're talking about, Mom says. You've never raised a teenager. I have. They'll tell you a lot of things to get what they want. They'll lie. They'll steal even. I bite my tongue. I know what she's referring to. That one time I got into her wallet and stole $50 after she told me that I couldn't have it for a concert I was desperate to go to. They'll break your heart, Mom says. You don't have the authority. If she wants to go to art school, she can do that in college. She's not going to do that as a teenager. Violet clears her throat, and I see her standing behind me. I don't know how much of the conversation she has heard, but she looks pissed. Listen, I have to go, I mumble. I turn the screen and suddenly they come face to face. Violet, I'm coming to get you today. Mom yells, pointing her finger at her. No, I'm staying the whole week. No, you're not. Not if you're going to be trying to do this to your sister. Do what? She yells back. She walks over and grabs the phone away from me. All I did was ask her if she'd pay for my school, and she said she'd think about it. That's not up to her. You're my child, and I'm not giving her custody of you. You're not going to live in LA with a sister who is never home, because she works crazy hours just so you can do whatever the hell you want. No, absolutely not. Why do you have to be like this? Violet begins to sob. Why do you have to make my life so awful all the time? Just because you're miserable, you want everyone else around you to be miserable too. Big fat tears roll down her cheeks, and then Mom starts to sob as well. I've never seen her cry like this, definitely not in the middle of a fight. With me, she always stood her ground. She always fought the battle to the end. This time she cracks. She wipes her tears and then says, I'll see you tonight. Be ready to go home. She hangs up. Why did you tell her about any of this? Violet snaps at me. I didn't. She's the one who brought it up. This wasn't the right time. Now she's going to come and get me. I can't even stay here anymore. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I don't know what happened. What happened is that you don't know Mom. You don't know how she is. I asked you not to say anything. We had a plan. You said you were going to look into financial aid options and maybe custody. Custody? I ask. I never said that. You need custody or permission from the guardian for me to live with you. I'm underage, remember? That thought never occurred to me. Her whole body begins to shake as she sobs. Listen, I'm sorry I talked to Mom about this, and I will still look into everything I said, but for now, let's just relax. Yeah, that's easier for you to do than for me. I'm leaving tonight. I have to go back home, and you finally get to have your apartment to yourself. Violet walks to my bedroom, slams the door, and turns on music as loud as she can. Suddenly, the thought of her moving in with me is not that appealing. Can I really handle this on top of my career? But can I have her stay with Mom if she's so unhappy there? When I get back to work, Thomas fills me in about his conversation with the narcotic detectives and Timmy H. He has an alibi for the night of the murder. There were 2 detectives watching his house. He didn't move, and he was home all night. So, are you sure that there's no way that he snuck out or possibly had someone else do it? Of course there is, Thomas says with a casual shrug. He's wearing his favorite blazer, and a tight pair of slacks that make his butt look amazing. He's no stranger to bench presses or running, and I admire the leanness of his body, a little too long for comfort. He notices and gives me a wink. I quickly turn around to make sure that nobody's watching us, while he shakes his head in disapproval. You know, you can't be this shy if you want to get anywhere in life. I'm not shy, just not interested, I say. This is about something else, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. He laughs and makes a little kissing sound with his lips, pushing the envelope with everything as always. We're at my desk, and there are people around. Even though I want to admonish him, I don't want to talk about this any longer than necessary. So, he was home with his family last night? What about Angie? Is she staying there? I ask. No. But he's her uncle, I point out. Yes, but they've had a falling out and haven't been in touch. He hasn't seen the family in years. You want the tapes? Wait, seriously, you talked to him? This morning I stopped by. Without me? I ask with my stomach in knots. He had no right to do this without me. It was on my way, he says. Look, this is our case and we work it together, okay? I ask, trying to keep my anger from boiling over. He nods, but by the look on his face, I can tell that he's not really agreeing with me. Listen, he was really distraught, Thomas says. He didn't hide the fact that he had a falling out with his brother, but those were his nieces and nephew. He was shocked, and he had nothing but good things to say about Julie. So you're certain that he's not involved? What about him wanting to get the business? He doesn't inherit it. It goes to Angie. Yeah, but Angie is underage, I point out. He shrugs and says he's clearly still a suspect. I don't think he's going to get the business because there was a big lawsuit that lasted for years, and finally Dale was the one who got it. He could have had someone else do it though. But why kill the kids? I ask rhetorically. Thomas nods and agrees. We head downstairs to the interview rooms to talk to Angie and McKenna again. Apparently, the social worker has agreed to let Angie stay with McKenna during this difficult time instead of with strangers, and McKenna even showed an interest in getting custody of her. When I spot them in the hallway, I pull McKenna outside. How's everything going? I ask. She seems better. I'm glad that she didn't have to stay with strangers, that they let her stay with me. She nods, cracking her knuckles. The strap of her bag keeps falling off her shoulder, but she props it up and doesn't give up trying to get it to stay. Her hair is swept up in a loose ponytail, and she looks like she hasn't slept in a few days. Angie has an uncle, she says quietly. Yes, we know. Timothy Hendrel. McKenna nods. Before I can launch into it further, Thomas clears his throat and gestures for us to go into the interview room. We head in together, the four of us. Technically, Angie is underage and should not be asked any questions without a guardian. McKenna is not officially her guardian, but the district attorney who's watching the recording has approved the interview. We need to talk to her. We need to get a little bit more information, and the details of this conversation can be ironed out later. Angie sits across from me in the chair. Although plastic and small, it makes her look tiny. She's wearing a pair of comfortable joggers and a slouchy sweatshirt with her bra strap peeking out. There's no makeup, and her hair that looks like it hasn't been washed in a couple of days droops down her shoulders. For a second, I wonder when the last time was that it was brushed. Thanks for coming in, Angie, I say. McKenna. Yeah, of course, she mumbles. Are you getting any closer to finding out who did it? She looks at me, then kind of through me, behind the wall behind me. Well, that's actually what I want to talk to you about. We've talked to all the neighbors, the flower shop employee, and your uncle. Uncle Timmy, she asks. I nod. You know he's a drug dealer, right? I nod again. He wanted the flower shop. He was obsessed with it. He threatened my dad numerous times, even tried to torch it. Torch it? Thomas huffs, leaning over and opening his notepad. How do you know this? There isn't a record. No, there wouldn't be. He's got a bunch of cops on his payroll, but that's what my dad said. He said Uncle Timmy did it. There was a fire. The back room burned down, but they were able to stop it in time and the insurance paid out. Suddenly she seems a lot more worldly than she did earlier. I wanted to ask you something, I say, leaning over. Thomas and I had talked about this earlier. How are we going to bring this up? It's all about her initial reaction. It's going to tell us everything. I reach into my bag and pull out an evidence bag. There are shell casings inside, and the blood drains away from her face. Do you know what this is? I ask, lifting it up in front of her. McKenna looks confused and surprised, but Angie just recoils away from me. She doesn't look shocked though, just uneasy. I don't know, bullets, she says after a moment. Close, I say. Shell casings, which is what's left of the bullets after they're fired. This time she looks at me, not at the bag, straight at me, and her lower lip begins to tremble. We found these and they match the scene. They match the bullets that killed your family. Angie begins to cry. How can you say it like that? McKenna gasps. Can you take that away? She's just a little girl. While I don't put it away, I do lower the evidence bag and place it on the table. Do you know where we found them? She shakes her head and McKenna looks disgusted, but I keep going. Thomas was the one who wanted to interview Angie, but I thought that he would be too forceful and too arrogant. It would be more effective for me to do it. I'm a woman, I'm not particularly intimidating, and I can relate to her since I was once a teenage girl. The shell casings were found in your bedroom, I say very slowly, enunciating every word. They were wrapped up in toilet paper, 5 squares. They were wrapped up and shoved in the back of your desk. Why did you do that? I ask, the last question is an accusation. Her eyes flash up to me. She looks shocked, disappointed, and crestfallen all at once. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. Let's say that's true, I say as calmly as possible. This person who came into your house, shot your family, picked up all the shell casings and hid them in your desk. Why? I don't know. She shakes her head. Why wouldn't he take them with him? Maybe to frame me, she whispers quietly. Maybe he didn't exist at all, I say sternly. I have no idea what you're talking about. She swallows hard and her shoulders begin to shake. I'm onto something and getting at the truth, I can feel it. What are you accusing her of exactly? McKenna asks. You think that she killed her own family? I wish that she weren't here, but she's the unofficial guardian, so she'll have to do. At least McKenna's not a lawyer. Suddenly, Angie begins to sob. Her whole body moves with each wave, and she wipes her tears with the back of her hand. She gasps for breath, but I continue. There wasn't any forced entry, no broken doors, no broken locks. Either someone walked in and the doors were unlocked, which was unlikely according to the neighbors and your father's friends due to the fact that he had such an acrimonious relationship with his brother, or it was an inside job. It wasn't a job, Angie cries. It was an accident. There it is. The room gets so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. This is what I was waiting for. This is what I wanted to get out of her. She knows something that she's not telling. An accident? I ask. What kind of accident? Angie, you don't have to say anything, McKenna says, suddenly coming out of her trance. Shut up, shut up, shut up, I say silently to myself to try to silence her. No, I have to explain, Angie says. I don't want them to get the wrong impression. McKenna reaches over to grab Angie's hand, but she pulls away and leans over the table. It was an accident, she whispers, looking straight into my eyes. I didn't mean for any of that to happen. What do you mean exactly? I ask. I was so angry with my dad. He called me a... She pauses, swallowing her words. He called you what? The C word, she whispers. I can't even say it. You don't have to. He heard from a friend of his that I had a boyfriend, and I wasn't supposed to have a boyfriend until I was 15. We didn't do anything except kiss, so what? Is that a big deal? Everyone at school has been sleeping around with everyone else for 2 years, and my parents were freaking out over me kissing a boy. I know that must have been terrible, I say. After putting on all of that pressure, I have to make her believe that I'm her friend. I need her to open up to me and to tell me what happened. Angie, you need an attorney. You can't talk, McKenna pipes in. No, shut up. Angie yells at her. I'm going to explain. This isn't my fault. Go ahead, I urge her. It was a mistake. I had a big fight with my dad, and I was so angry, so I went into the garage where my dad kept his gun. He always kept it loaded, and with the silencer on just in case someone broke in. She pauses for a moment to collect her thoughts. Please go on, I urge her gently. He told us the combination to the safe, just in case we ever needed it, and I was just going to threaten him with it. I just wanted to show him that he can't just bully me around and make me feel terrible and call me names. Then my brother saw me with it. He startled me and the gun went off. I stare at her. Is she really saying what I think she's saying? Then my sister started to scream, and I needed her to just stop. She was yelling so loud that I couldn't even hear myself think. So I shot her too. I lose track of my thoughts. It's almost as if my mind stops working. I can't believe what I'm hearing. My mouth drops open a little bit, and it takes actual effort to close it. What about your parents? Thomas asks. I glance over at McKenna, who is staring at this girl before her in disbelief. Our eyes meet, but we both look away from each other quickly. I kept waiting for them to come out, Angie continues. They didn't. Their TV was on really loud, so they didn't hear anything. My brother and sister were dead, and I don't know. I was still so angry at my dad, and he made me do all of that. It was just an accident. There are no tears streaming down her face. There's just a vacant, empty expression indicating no remorse whatsoever. So what happened then? I ask. I'll tell you, but you have to promise that I won't get in trouble. Suddenly, she reverts back to being a child. It's like she's telling me a story, but doesn't think there will be any consequences. Does she actually think that she will walk out of this room a free woman? With every word she says, she's burying herself deeper underground. She doesn't know it yet, but she'll never leave prison if she's lucky enough not to get the death penalty. What happened then? I ask, realizing that the need to know the truth and that the story is stronger than any urge that I have to protect her. I went to my parents' room and they were sitting in bed, she says quietly. I had the gun behind my back, and I was still so angry with them for making this whole thing happen. My dad started to say something, and then my mom saw the gun. She started to yell, and I shot her. I shot my dad last because I had to tell him it wasn't all my fault, and that none of this would have happened if it weren't for him. The silence in the room is deafening. My head starts to pound, and my mouth is so parched that it feels like a desert. What about the fire? Thomas asks, leaning back in his chair. What about it? Angie whispers. Did you start it? She shakes her head. Who did? She looks at McKenna. Did you start the fire, Angie? She asks, and both begin to cry. Angie reaches over and buries her head in McKenna's shoulder, saying yes over and over again, her voice muffled by the fabric of the sweater. Chapter 10. After Angie is officially arrested and taken into custody, I turn to Thomas in disbelief. How could it be her? I ask. Man, I thought I was a cynic, he says, but I would have never figured that she could do something like that. I guess everyone is capable of just about anything, I say, though privately I agree with him. Angie seemed so traumatized over the death of her family, but now I think she was just traumatized by what she'd done. Still, the last thing I expected was to find out that she was the one who was responsible for it. Catherine Harris, the assistant DA, comes into the break room with a smile on her face. You can't be happy about this, I say. Why not? You got the confession. Now we're just going to comb through the evidence, confirm that she's telling us the truth, and put her away for life. I shrug, slumping my shoulders. What do you want me to do, Kaitlyn? She killed 4 people, and she admitted it. Yes, of course I know, I admit. What about the fact that she didn't have a guardian with her? Is that going to be a problem? Thomas asks. Her attorney is definitely going to make a case about that, and we're just going to have to duke it out in court. I'm not sure she would have come forward like this without McKenna's presence. Now we just have to make sure we get all the corroborating evidence we can, in case that confession gets thrown out. Could be an issue, I point out. I'm surprised you had us continue. She was staying with McKenna. So, McKenna was acting as her guardian at the time of this confession, but she's a teenage girl and I'm sure that she made other mistakes. What do you mean? I ask. Well, there'll be corroborating evidence besides the shell casings, fingerprints, DNA, murder weapon, the works. You're going to have to find all of it. I nod. A part of me is glad that we have solved the case, but a part of me also has a bad taste in my mouth about the whole thing. Listen, I know this is a crappy situation. I mean, reading her rights, taking her into custody. I'm sorry about that, but thanks for doing your job, Kaitlyn. Thomas. We can't have a person like that out there on the streets. Thomas nods and I do as well, reluctantly. Usually, in a situation like this, after getting a confession, we go out for drinks to celebrate. But this afternoon, I'm not in the mood. I feel disgusted by what has happened. It's not that I don't believe that Angie did it. I'm just torn up over the fact that something like this happened at all. Besides, I have something else to take care of back at the apartment. When I get back home, Mom is already there fighting with Violet. I can hear their voices in the hallway, and I'm sure that my neighbors can as well. I'm not going home with you. Violet yells. You can't make me. I walk in and throw my keys on the kitchen counter. Both Mom and Violet stop in their tracks and stare at me. What happened to you? Mom asks. I had a tough case, I mumble. Violet comes down, sits on the edge of the couch, and continues to protest, but this time much less vociferously. Mom sits down next to her, taking her hand. Violet, you have school next week. If you finish this year with good grades and if you don't skip any school, then we can start working on our relationship and I'll consider this art school. Seriously? Violet's face lights up. Mom nods. I promise I'll be good. I can work all summer and try to get the tuition together so that you and Kaitlyn don't have to pay for everything. Don't worry about that, Mom says. That's the financial situation and I'll take care of it, or maybe I can get loans. It doesn't matter. If that's something that you want, you need to work hard. You need to turn things around. You need to show me that I can trust you. Yes, of course. Anything. Anything at all, Violet says, draping her arms around Mom's shoulders. She gives her a kiss on both cheeks and then smiles from ear to ear. I smile back. While Violet is gathering her things in the other room and packing up, I ask Mom what made her change her mind. She stares at me and says, "Nothing's changed." What about what you just said? I ask, nearly choking on a gulp of water. Look, I'm telling her what she wants to hear. I need her to come home. I need her to behave. This art school phase is going to pass. She'll forget about it. All teenagers go through phases. My mouth drops open, and I can't physically close it even when Violet comes out. She doesn't seem to notice a thing, and instead gives me a warm hug and thanks me for talking some sense into our mom. I want to ask her to stay, but I can't quite find the words. I want her to stay, but she needs to finish the school year, and I'm too irresponsible to raise a teenager. I'll call you, I promise. Text would be better. Violet laughs and waves goodbye to me as I see her get into Mom's car and drive away. I go back upstairs, still drenched in disgust from my day and all the horrible people that I've encountered. I want to take a shower to wash it all off. After I do, the disgust lingers in the air like mold. There's nothing I can do for Violet now, but there is something that I can do for her later. I open my laptop, find the school's website, and click on their financial aid information. One of the tabs says, "Want to see how you can afford the school for your child?" I click on it and start to fill out the information packet. I hope you loved meeting Detective Kaitlyn Carr and her sister, Violet. The first full-length book in the Kaitlyn Carr series is Girl Missing. Find out what happens when a young girl is found hanging from a tree and Violet disappears. Read Girl Missing now. If you enjoyed this book, please take a moment to write a short review on your favorite book site and maybe recommend it to a friend or two. You can also join my Facebook group, Kate Gable's Reader Club, for exclusive giveaways and sneak peeks of future books. Want to be the first to know about my upcoming sales, new releases, and exclusive giveaways? Go to kategable.com. Want to email me? Write me at kate@kategable.com. Also, make sure to join my newsletter and my Facebook group. About Kate Gable. Kate Gable loves a good mystery that is full of suspense. She grew up devouring psychological thrillers and crime novels, as well as movies, TV shows, and true crime. Her favorite stories are the ones that are centered on families with lots of secrets and lies, as well as many twists and turns. Her novels have elements of psychological suspense, thriller, mystery, and romance. Kate Gable lives in Southern California with her husband, son, a dog, and a cat. She has spent more than 20 years in this area and finds inspiration from its cities, canyons, deserts, and small mountain towns. Write her here. Kate@kategable.com. Check out her books here. www.kategable.com Sign up for my newsletter. https://www.subscribepage.com/Kaitlyn. Join my Facebook group. https://www.facebook.com/group/83385102055755518. Bonus points. Follow me on BookBub and Goodreads. https://www.bookbub.com/author/Kate-Gable. https://www.goodreads.com/author/show/215342224.Kate_Gable. Facebook. Goodreads. Instagram. Also by Kate Gable. All books are available at all major retailers. If you can't find it, please email me at kate@kategable.com. Girl Missing Book 1. Girl Lost Book 2. Girl Found Book 3. Girl Taken Book 4. Girl Forgotten Book 5. Girl Hidden Free Novella. Thank you for listening to Girl Hidden, a Detective Kaitlyn Carr mystery novella. A novella by Kate Gable. Narrated by Madison Gilpin. Copyright 2022. The End.